there's a lot of stress when you're younger. I remember them ramen noodles and Kraft dinner days, like I said. I still, every now and again, will break out a package of ramen noodles so that I can touch grass and remind myself, this is where you came from. Don't forget. Because if you get so far away, you can't help people who are there right now.
Hello and welcome to another great edition of Beyond the Hype with Black Enterprise. Yes, I am your host, Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior Vice President and Executive Editor at Black Enterprise. You know, I promise every episode it's going to be a great conversation. Today, I know it's going to be a great conversation because we have the first returning guest ever in the history of the show, which has been on for more than 5 years. But before I get to her, listen, if you're watching via YouTube, I want to remind you to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, because that way not only you get to hear this episode of Beyond the Hype and watch it, but all of our premium content for all of our shows and all of our events is here on YouTube. Of course, you can watch at blackenterprise.com and you can watch on all our social channels on Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. But we want to make sure that you get to listen to this show on demand, all the other episodes of the show, and all the other great content. So make sure you remember to do that. Listen, today, as part of our special series with our sponsor, ManuLife John Hancock, is another great episode of The Money Moves That Matter. And our returning guest, who is an amazing friend of Black Enterprise, an amazing friend of yours, whether you know it or not, is Camille Stewart, Vice President, Head of Continuous Delivery at ManuLife Wealth and Asset Management. Welcome back to the show, Camille.
Thank you so much for having me, Alfred. It is great to be back.
That's the first time I've ever said those words. Welcome back to the show. So I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And I can't think of a better guest because I know our audience responded so well to what you shared the last time you were on the show, because you speak to the core of the Black Enterprise mission of financial inclusion, wealth management, wealth creation. So I just knew it was going to be a great show then. I know today's going to be a great conversation. But let's get to it. We're always talking about financial inclusion. It's one of the things that your organization and Black Enterprise aligns on, but it's also what you personally align on. But before we jump into that, let's talk about your journey to what you do now, how you got here, who you are, what drew you to this industry, and talk about your personal purpose in terms of that driving what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Well, Alfred, as I had talked about the last time, this industry really speaks to the core values that drive me as a person. I talked about the fact that, at a critical time in my life, my mother suffered a significant illness. She unfortunately suffered a brain aneurysm, and she just happened to check a box for disability to 65. And that product, just having that solution was so critical to my success and my brother's success. It just really kept us going. And so just being able to be the recipient of the product and being able to survive, it really made me start to look at, hey, how can I help others who may be in a similar situation? Just making sure that people have the products, the services, the solutions that they need. And I got to be honest, as I started to grow in this industry, made me realize that a lot of us don't realize or know that we can also have a meaningful career in financial services, in wealth and asset management. So not only are we learning and having access to, you know, products that will give us, we call it financial inclusion, but really we're about building legacy. That's really what it's about. Living well, living healthy, planning to live the best life that you can, and then making sure that you can build that legacy for generations to come. So I also, I'm very, very passionate about talking about the fact that you can build a career in this industry. There is a lot that you can do with the skills that you have. So that's really my core purpose.
You know, both of us have, we've talked before, both on the show and outside the show. And one of the things I've always felt like we had a connection to, and it's something that I think our organizations believe. I've been at Black Enterprise for a very long time, but I've discovered in my own personal journey, and that's when we ask ourselves, and no matter what we do for a living or for a life, it's like what delivers the desired outcomes that we want. And what I've learned, and I think applies to you, is that when your personal sense of purpose aligns with the organization you choose to be a part of, and that aligns with the outcomes you want to deliver for the people you serve, that turns into what you said, a meaningful life, a meaningful career, not just a career of busyness, of activity, of work, but meaning. And this idea of are things aligned in your life so that you could deliver the impact and the outcomes that you want? That yeah, you're doing it for your company, you're doing it for your clients, but ultimately it's about what you want to do and want to feel day to day. And I think one of the reasons why your last appearance on the show resonated so much is because it was rooted in a very, very personal experience that goes beyond, I have this title and I have this job and I work for this kind of company. It's business, it's professional, but it's very, very personal. And I think that's really an important point to underscore when you talk about what types of partnerships and relationships really deliver outcomes that go beyond the sum of the parts.
Well, Alfred, if I take a step back and think about, big financial institutions, even for myself when I was younger, you feel almost like you are a nameless number. That organization probably doesn't care about me, doesn't care about my needs, doesn't know who I am. And as a community, we tend to shy away from what we don't know, right? Particularly when it comes to financial services and understanding products. And so for me, I really love these types of partnerships because it allows, individuals like me to have these one-on-one conversations to, really break down the barriers to say, hey, you know what? These solutions exist and it is okay to plan ahead so that when life happens, because we know one way or another, life is going to happen. We just don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. Let's just make sure that you've got access to what you need so that your family is protected, your health is protected. And this is why we think of it almost as preventative medicine. Just as how we get up, we exercise. My team and I, some of my, colleagues, we tease each other every day and we say, lift something. Just lift something. Even if you don't get in the gym, lift a chair, lift something, not just a fork. Lift something. Get your body moving, get your body sweating, get your blood pumping, because if you don't use it, you will lose it. So exercise and finding something that's meaningful to you is key. And the same way you want to treat your body and make sure your body um, is set up for longevity, you want to make sure that you're thinking about your financial plan. And there are just lots and lots of options out there. And so, Black Enterprise and other platforms beyond the hype and others, we just want to get the word out there that we actually care about customers and about people. I often say, I am my sister's keeper. I do want to make sure that, we get the word out there that services exist to help.
I think that idea of the communication of caring that goes beyond, again, the nuts and bolts of business and products and services of the marketplace, that there's somebody that communicates a sense of care. And I'm gonna try to not go off on a tangent because you already know how passionate I am about this health and wealth connection, and this idea now that it's important to not, I'm gonna speak of health in particular, but I think it applies to wealth, that it's not about what won't happen if you don't do the right thing, because while that may be true, negative incentives don't tend to incentivize people to actually take action on their own behalf. You do a wonderful job of talking about, again, using your mother's example, or your family's example, of the positive outcomes that come out of it if you lean into investing in this area of your life, investing in finding out the tools, and the resources that, and the expertise that can be available to you. So much both in the health space and the wealth space, and now I shift it back to the financial services industry. historically, I think it's much better over the last 20 years, has been if you don't know, you don't need to know. Or if you do know, there's something wrong with you if you don't. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like a negative,
Right.
and like you said, for people who are maybe been outside of that industry, it made you shy away from it. I don't want to feel bad about what I didn't know. I don't want to feel bad about what I haven't done. So I don't want to deal with it. You do a great job on a personal level, but also Manulife as a company of saying it's okay that you don't know. It's okay that you haven't heard of these things. And by the way, it's not because there's something wrong with you. This is a constantly evolving industry. That's why there are professionals who spend their time focused on it because you don't have time to stay on top of it. But my point is that you do a great job of integrating, again, this idea of your personal purpose and at a company that is aligns with that to deliver value to the people you're looking to serve. Before I get that far down the road, one of the things about people in your position is that it's hard to visualize what that means. Some of it you touched on, but on a day-to-day basis, how do you actually actualize your own passion for this? Some of it is being on a show like this and talking about this, but what does your day-to-day life look like in your current role in terms of empowering people financially and getting people to embrace the solutions that are available to them?
So, Alfred, my day to day is, I mean, I touch the canvas is broad and wide. I tend to be, focused on strategic, we call them massive transformational initiatives, but essentially think about, the observation of the animal in the wild. What do our clients and our advisors or the intermediaries, what do they need in order to be able to get access? So sometimes you can think of it from everything to a digital platform, a different digital experience. I don't understand where it is that I can get access to advice, to services. So my job, my day to day is really looking at what's missing and then how do we plan ahead? And my team does the executing on those experiences for both, advisors, intermediaries, and clients. So think of everything from concept to how does this product get into someone's hands. That's my day-to-day world. So there's a little bit of everything. And right after this conversation, I'm gonna get into some more chaos because stuff has to get done. But it's interesting, it is, never the same. There are no 2 days that are exactly the same, and this is why I really try to encourage people to look at capital markets, public, private investments, investment marketing, wealth and asset management. It is such an exciting place to be.
As I talked to you and again many times, and many of your colleagues, you are in an industry and in a company, one of the few industries where the healthier your customer base, the happier your customer base, the more productive the customer your base is, the better it is for you. That there's not a conflict of interest between the goals you have for your clients and what's best for your company. And the beautiful thing about that is that it makes collaboration not only desirable, but really necessary. And I talked to one of your colleagues, Kathleen Pritchard, who focuses on the education of financial advisors, that it's not just what does Camille want, what does Manulife want, and then what does the user or the client want at the end. Every chain along the way has certain goals and objectives that has to be aligned with the next step along the way, or it doesn't work. And so, we talked a lot about the education of financial advisors and their evolution as they try to achieve their own goals professionally, but also serve their clients. So I'm always very impressed about the ability to take what is to the layperson, even to the educated layperson, a very complex industry. Like you say, you think about all the things you got to keep track of, just as an American around world economies, et cetera. But at the same time, it can be distilled into a series of outcomes tied to the desires of people all along the way. So talk about the spirit of collaboration, whether it's what you do in collaboration with Black Enterprise, how that's almost it's a necessary component of doing business successfully in this space for everyone concerned.
If you think about what we do, we talk about these products and services, but at the end of the day, we won't be successful if clients and ultimately communities don't hear us. If they don't know that these services and solutions exist, then we're not serving anybody, right? So, as you said, it is not in our financial best interest to have an unhealthy and, not wealthy population. So, we partner with organizations such as yourself to get the word out. This is when we talk about and why we talk about financial inclusion. It really is about making sure that we are getting access to communities, particularly those that are underserved and don't understand, hey, financial institutions are massive, but we can break the story into bite sized chunks and align what we offer with what you need to help your health and wealth journey. Because it is a journey, right? So for me, this is why, integrating into organizations such as yourself, because I feel now like I am part of the Black enterprise family, if I may say so.
You may.
Um, but it's really, really important for us to just be able to just break those barriers and get in front of regular people and say, hey, we hear you. We are here to take away those barriers, and we're here to make your life easier.
It's just that's personally important to me because my journey as a journalist, as an editor, as a media professional is coming from a background. I mean, I don't even actually have a degree in journalism. Many people don't know that. My degree is in art. I am one of the first people in my generation and even my family go to college. So much of my road and my journey, even today, is different from where I started from. And there was so many things I didn't know and understand because of where I started from. And so it's personal for me. Like I said, how do I take what I've learned and take it to other people who are like me, but hopefully, younger in their lives so that they can get the lessons and get the benefits earlier and hopefully on a more magnified scale. But that said, the other thing that makes this personal is that this is not an antiseptic in the lab kind of journey. You talk about the journey of life. This is not on a closed racetrack with paved with a paved road and no interaction. There's
Right.
guardrails and there's rules.
Right.
The journey takes us all over the place. You mentioned it earlier. Life be life, and people go to college. People's parents pass away. People have to retire. People go through divorce. People decide that they want to build a business. Their careers are. They're going through all these transitions. Most of them unplanned. But there's the plan we went out there with, and then there's the things that happen that make us adjust along the way. And how is that reality of getting it out of the lab, out of the computer
Mhm.
algorithm, if you will, into the real lives that people are living, and why the idea of being able to practice financial inclusion in a real world day to day way is so important because you can lay out the perfect plan on paper, but if you don't have a good partner and good resources to help you navigate when the plan doesn't go the way it was planned, when
Right.
life happens to you, um, this is when the value of in my mind, financial inclusion is so critical.
So, Alfred, let me give you a really good example, and I'm hoping that the audience takes this. I talked about my situation and how disability insurance saved me. But one of my peers, she's just down the hall, my girl, and one of the things that she often does when anybody walks by, she asks one question: do you have a will? So I thought, what is going on? How is she asking? I mean, she's asking coworkers. She's not outside on the street. She's asking people who work in this building, do you have a will? So I decided to do a little investigating and figure out what's going on? What happened? She said, well, you know, I had a situation where my cousin, I'm very close to, single mom, two kids, she passed suddenly. And then she said, I was just left with she had no will. So it was just these two kids. And she thought, well, let me try and at least pay a couple bills so that their home, we can just maintain the home for the kids as we figure out what's happening. She said, Camille, I couldn't even pay the bill because unless your name is on the account with the utility company, you can't get access to any information. She went through so much and had to spend over $10,000 in court to finally secure these two children and get, a little trust fund set up for them, make sure that these kids are taken care of. And so, I thought about that and I thought, now getting a will is a simple thing, very, very simple. But only 31% of Americans have a will. And it's even less so for women because the assumption is, well, I got a spouse, I got a mom, I got my siblings, they're going to take care of it. But you have to actually jump through hoops to take care of it. So this is why we come out and we say, hey, there are just some little things that you can do to plan and to be able to just put some things in place so that the people who are taking care of your business when you're gone have an easier road. And that's just one example. When we think about, as we talked about before, this concept of health and wealth, you know, the healthier you are, which is a great thing, the longer we're expecting you to live, which is also a great thing. But that means you need more money
Hello?
because last I checked, living ain't free. So we got to make sure that we're planning for our physical longevity and our financial longevity. Again, all these things can be mapped out and can be planned out with an advisor, um, with someone that you trust. The organizations are there. ManuLife John Hancock is there to help. This is what we do, and this is what we are passionate about. And I give that story to say, I've got my mom's story, I've got my peer story, and there are quite a few more in the building. You got a building full of passionate people who've been through some stuff and who want to make sure that, hey, there's anyone else out there who might potentially go through this. I want to make sure I head it off at the pass and help you out before it happens.
I strongly, strongly, strongly identify with all of that because I am a living example of the good news. I just turned 65 this year. And by the way, I thought I was the $6 million man. The milestone uh, screenings and tests you take when you hit a certain age milestone. Like,
Yes, yes,
"Now, what do you want
yes.
to test me for next?" But the good news is everything's great. And
Mm,
but as someone who did and has planned for this idea, I want to live a very long, productive life. I am facing something that many people who are baby boomers and even to some degree Gen X are facing, which is the good news is you're living longer than your parents and your grandparents ever thought they'd live. The challenge is now you got to plan for that. That, like you said,
mhm.
you don't age out of your mortgage. You don't age out of needing food. They don't give you a pass not to pay your electric bill after a certain age. And also, if you're going to be around, you do want to live and not just survive. And so, this idea of longevity financial planning, planning for what your life looks like at 75, 80, 85, and now you got more centenarians than ever, is a real thing. And so I appreciate the work that Manulife is doing in that space, and we don't even have time to talk about that here. But this idea that it used for our grandparents, it was if I can get to 70 and I got everything kind of
Right.
lined up, I'm pretty much going to be in good shape. But now you could get to 70 and still need to work or still want to work. And that means money has to be managed, assets have to be managed. And the world, and I'm talking about both, you know, government structures and private sectors weren't necessarily set up for that. And now they're wrestling with those issues around Social Security. So I just think that you're hitting on that point while we can't go much more deeply into it than I have. It's so very important for our audience. But the second thing that I think you hit on, you talked about these are people inside the organizations your colleague is asking these questions to. I'm speaking as someone who is a experienced financial journalist for 4 decades, and I've learned about probably about 25 years ago that the barrier to my own decision making wasn't education. Because sometimes, actually more times than we care to admit, you know better, but you still don't do different or
Mm,
do better. And that's what I appreciate the work that you're doing because the biggest transformation of the financial services industry, in my opinion, over the last 25 to 30 years, has been the recognition that you have to address financial behaviors and the emotions and the culture behind those behaviors that goes beyond the knowledge of what a stock and bond is and how do you keep your credit up. Because often the change is not because the person's intellectually incapable, it's because there's something about their emotions around their behaviors.
Exactly.
And that's why the caring part, that you're not just a number to me. I want to understand your journey. I want to understand why you know you need a will, but you haven't done it. You know you need to. And so I do like to address. 'Cause I think it's one of your strong suits. One thing I love so much about you as a person, that there's an understanding, yeah, again, rooted in your own personal experience, that even after you get the X's and the O's right, then there is what is it about the mindset and the emotional state of a person or a family, especially during times of grief when someone's lost somebody. You try to manage what's going to happen to these kids as you're navigating the loss of loved ones. But to be able to get to, I care about you as a person, so I'm going to help you understand emotionally why you don't have your will together. And by the way, that's one of my challenging, constantly trying to figure out what I'm doing with my estate plan. And it's not about intellectual incapacity. There's emotional issues tied to how I
Right.
see money and life that I've had to navigate, not only with financial advice, with my therapist about why aren't you doing these things. And so I do like to address that a little bit because that's why the caring part is so important, and that's what makes the financial service industry work when it does work.
You know, Alfred, if you think about what we talked about,
Mm.
right? The two things people have trouble doing: setting an exercise routine on a regular basis, because it takes discipline. Takes discipline to get up every day, and be at 5 o'clock in the morning and get on that treadmill or, lift that weight. Takes discipline, and it takes financial discipline as well to have a plan. So to me, those two behavioral challenges tend to go hand in hand.
Yes.
If you're stuck in one place, chances are you're going to be stuck in another. And so when I think about our organization, we have a global, what we call it, our impact agenda. And we're, really thinking about how can we break these things into bite-sized chunks. So health, longevity, that's one. Making sure that we're driving economic opportunities and, accelerating a sustainable future for all of us. So if we think about that, and we're thinking about this globally, it's not just in one location, it's in multiple regions. That shows up differently. And so to your point, Alfred, everybody's got their thing. Yes, there are times when I'm going to be eating junk food when I shouldn't, but I have somebody that I'm accountable to from a weight journey perspective. I think I've talked before here, like I've lost 70 pounds.
Yes.
So I wasn't always this size. And I've maintained that now for just over 3 years. And again, practice, practice, practice. And every day I say physically, I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing my best self. And I have a financial advisor within this organization who also keeps me grounded and is holds me accountable. We set a plan, and this woman has no manners. She shows up in January. So before you get carried away with your how much money you want to spend this year, I show up early. So she shows up and she lays out the plan and she says, "Let's talk about where we're at. Let's talk about what we want to do." And by the way, I'm still living. I still get to travel. I still get to do all the fun things. But the plan, my husband and I, we are very, very disciplined. And because the plan is easy. And when you start to see the benefits of the plan coming to life, man, there is no better feeling. So not only am I talking from the point of saying, hey, I work for this company, but I personally own the products, the services, the solutions. And yes, I have a will. Yes, I go through the plan. As a matter of fact, we look at the plan twice a year. We make sure we're aligned. And that's, for me, the best feeling. And I would love for everyone to have that feeling. But more importantly, for more individuals within our own community to start to understand what that feels like. Like, let's not, we know, we always talk about generational curses. No, we want legacy. We want a health and wealth legacy. And that is what we are continuing to push and talk about. And so, in order to do that, we look at, hey, young person, what do you need? Because there's a lot of stress when you're younger. I remember them ramen noodles and Kraft dinner days, like I said. I still, every now and again, will break out a package of ramen noodles so that I can touch grass and remind myself, this is where you came from. Don't forget. Because if you get so far away, you can't help people who are there right now. So let's look at solutions for that generation. Let's look at, the planning, Alfred, the vintage that Alfred is in, right? As you're looking to maybe transition or say, hey, I love this, but I'm going to do a few less podcasts and I'm going to do a few more trips. Let's make sure that we've got those services and solutions for you. And let's make sure that you're looking at health holistically. We have some, um, you know, memes and stuff on we have TVs, we call it ManuLife TV. There's TVs all over this building. And it'll say, hey, do you know kissing burns calories? Every time I see that, I laugh. But it's really to get people in the mindset that you can do everyday things that are good for your body. Think about just everyday movement and think about the financial plan. And that really is the core of who we are.
This is a great area to kind of come down the home stretch of our conversation because there's a hopefulness that comes behind planning. Again, as I said at the top, we've learned both in the wealth space and the health space that focusing on what goes wrong if you don't do it. Yes, we know there's a negative domino effect in both of those spaces. If you don't exercise, you tend not to eat well. If you don't eat well, then you start having other outcomes. It affects your mental health. So we talk about, again, you use the word generational curses, but I tell people blessings are generational too, that the domino
Exactly.
effect can happen in the other direction. And you talked about that feeling. I can interview. I'm on both sides of the table in these podcasts. Half the time I'm the guest. Sometimes I'm the host. I was on a podcast that was recorded down in Tampa last week, and they talked about the word discipline because again they know about my health career, my bodybuilding passion, and I said the beauty about getting on this path, and this applies to both health and wealth, because they're really kind of two sides of the same coin, is that progress becomes motivation. You talking about that feeling when you see what you've accomplished and how that makes it more likely that you'll continue down the path of positive decision making. Because once you start
Mhm.
seeing those benefits accrue, I tell you, it's no longer about discipline for me, at least in the health space. In the financial space, it still is. But because now I'm looking at, oh man, I'll look at a picture of what I look like and what I felt like and what my physical exam was when I was 40. And I told you, I just went through the exams I just had, and it's so much better. And I'm like, I'm gonna build on that. Oh, so it's become easy for me. Now it's not discipline. I desire to take these steps and to follow the plan. And so I always tell people it's so important to change this from a struggle narrative to a hope and optimism narrative because now you have actual evidence. You have evidence. You know that what you used to weigh and what you weigh now. You know what you're physically capable of doing now that was a challenge for you before. And that itself becomes a motivation. And I say for financial planning, as hard as I am on myself about the things I haven't done yet or I'm still working on, I also could look at what has been done and say, hey, that's motivation to keep doing it. That's motivation that talk to Camille Stewart. That's motivation to not give up on myself. Because sometimes when you have that quote unquote cheat meal or you don't do everything perfectly, you can, some of us, I'm hard on myself,
Right.
beat ourselves up.
Right.
But your accountability partner not only holds you accountable to do the right things, but she also reminds you, hey, look, Camille, we know you can do this. Look at all the great things you've done already. It's having a cheerleader in your corner. And to me, the beauty is that if you can get over the hump from discipline to desire,
Mhm.
it's just a beautiful feeling. It's a beautiful thing to look forward to your next meal, to look forward to your next workout, to look forward to taking the stairs instead of the elevator. And I tell people it's there. It's just on the other side of you just committing to the plan and having faith in that plan.
Amen.
Okay, you said I said it. I don't need to say. I'm so passionate about this stuff. Listen, outside of work, And we always talk about this on every episode of the show. What keeps Camille focused on Camille, her sense of purpose, being the best you can be for yourself and for your family and for your husband and for all the other people that you serve during the course of your life, both personally and professionally?
I love to mentor. So I have a Rolodex of individuals who are at various stages of their life that I literally have taken under my wing, and so the roster changes as I see, particularly ladies, women of color, and as I see them start to build their career, say, "All right, you can fly now." I'll take in a new set. Um, I am so passionate about making sure that particularly women of color have confidence. Most of the time, when someone meets me, and we start in a mentoring situation, that's another thing that our organization is great about, just partnering executives with lower level staff so that we can build them up. Um, but oftentimes, the body language is a little reserved. So even if you can communicate really well, your body language is not saying that you're ready. So I try to work with the whole person. Working with people takes time. We are also partnered with an organization called Rock the Street, Wall Street, and that organization is in multiple countries. And I got trained, and went into the high school to teach young women, grades 9 to 11, about exactly what I'm talking about, right? The M in STEM doesn't have to be scary. Let's teach you about budgeting. Let's teach you about a financial plan early so that it doesn't have to feel like discipline, right? Because if we get to them early, then we're expecting great outcomes. And we also talk about, and by the way, when you head into university, you can also consider a career in capital markets, in wealth and asset management. There's lots for you to be able to do. You're smart, you can do it. And so to just start to see them stand differently. Oh man, Alfred, there's no better feeling for me personally. So outside, I've got a massive family. I got lots of young people in the family that are coming up. I just want to see most of them. No, I wanna see all of them fulfill their dreams, whatever their passion is. They know auntie is very, very concerned. Don't come to me slouching, and, don't stand up straight. What is it that you need? What is it that you want? Let's have a real conversation. And so to see young women and men, really start to talk differently, that is what drives me and keeps me passionate. And so I'm able to have the conversations at work and outside. It's just continuous because my passion really doesn't change, right? You give me a chance, I'll make sure. Yes, we could eat some good food. I told you I love to cook. That hasn't changed. I'm still wielding a spoon. Oh, Alfred, I'm already thinking about Thanksgiving, but we're not going to go there. But I'm just saying, I can still be passionate about the things that I am passionate about, and make sure that others are reaching their goals and are just as passionate.
I'm telling you, Camille, the longer we know each other, the more we talk. I'm like, you're my tribe. You're in my tribe because I mean, if I'm known for nothing else, especially on social media, it's for mentoring. And I was mentoring before I knew that's what I was doing because I started doing it when I came out of undergrad, not realizing that that's what I was doing. And it's everything you said. And my gift as a mentor is what you talked about. I am about the development of the person. Many of
Yes.
my mentees are entrepreneurs, and I don't know as much about their respective businesses as they do, but I tell them, but I know if you break down, it all breaks down. So I got to address your confidence level. I got to address how you communicate, how much confidence do you have when you walk into certain rooms where you may be the only person that has your background
Right.
in that room, but you still have to be able to engage and champion your business and your ideas and yourself. And so this, if you ever see the hashtag on social media, my mentees are better than yours, That's probably one of my people who's using the hashtag, or they'll say my mentor is better than yours. But it's everything you said, and and I'll just tie it together with the whole thing that it's what I do for a living in a way with Black Enterprise and what we do, but it's totally consistent with what I do when I'm not at work. It's the same thing. And it's a wonderful thing when you don't have to change personalities, you don't have to change energy level,
Exactly.
you don't have to change value systems to go from one space to the other because each thing supports and reinforces the other thing. And I've learned over the years that people who are successful in life, I also said this during the interview where I was interviewed last week, that I'm not trying to blend, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to balance, excuse me. I blend. I try to make everything I do be consistent with everything else that I do, so there's minimal conflict between the different aspects of my life and my commitments. And it just sounds like that's what you do. You're
That's
Camille
my life.
everywhere you go.
Well, always Camille. And there's no there's minimal code switching. What you see is what you get. If we're gonna have a hard conversation, we're gonna have a hard conversation. That's okay. I've earned the right. I've been in this industry now for over 30 years. So yeah, we're gonna push and we're gonna continue to help our own get there.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, and I was considered a young star as a journalist when I first came to New York. And I said, "Yeah, that was great. That was fun," when I was like, "Oh, that's the hot editor." Yeah.
Mhm.
I said, "But there's nothing better than being a star maker." I said, "Being a star is nice,
Mm.
but when you look
Mhm.
around and you see people that you helped along the way, you've mentored, you've advised, and you see them blow up and do the things that they wanna do," I tell you, there's no better feel.
Agreed.
I say, "Great players come and go, but it's the coaches that become legendary." It's the coaches that are like, "Oh, look at these championships and these champions that came through them." So I just you're my person, Camille. I'm telling you, you're my person. So listen, what's the best way for our listeners? I'll talk to you for the next 3 hours because but to stay connected with you, to keep following what you're doing, what's the best way?
LinkedIn is the best way. Just Camille Stewart. And just look me up at LinkedIn. I'm there.
Listen, Camille, always a pleasure. Um, Looking forward to our paths crossing again in real life. And I'm
Yes,
glad
yes.
that you were able to be a guest for the second time, the first in history of Beyond the Hype with Black Enterprise.
I am proud and so pleased to have been here. Thank you so much, Alfred, for having me.
Yep, I promise, and I delivered again. Another great edition of Beyond the Hype. But I had a cheat code this time because I knew who was coming. So this wasn't a guess. This was I know. Thank you for joining us. This episode of Beyond the Hype is brought to you by ManuLife John Hancock, our friends there. Remember to subscribe to Black Enterprise on YouTube. You can also catch this show and all of our shows at blackenterprise.com, our YouTube channel. If you're watching from LinkedIn or Facebook Live, yes, you can catch us there too. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time. Please take care. Health and wealth. Take care.
I am doubly honored to receive the Earl Graves Senior Vanguard Award, named after Bee's founder. Mr. Graves was always a guiding light for me and many others. He always had advice, a kind word, and even a playful jab for me.
Coming here lifts my spirits because I know that no matter what happens around us, I think we have a chance to do some great things.
Networking is extremely important.
This is a conference I definitely will look forward to coming to.
Excellence is the base. That's the base. The goal is exceptionalism.
Anybody that is a business person needs to be here.
For more than 5 decades, we've had your back. Beyond the Hype and Black Enterprise have everything you need to elevate your excellence.